Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to At America. Can we give another big round of applause? Thank you very much, everyone. My name is Hasna Rohani, and I am your e-guide for today's very special event here at America, the U.S. Embassy's American Center. First of all, I would like to say hello to our audience members joining us here inside. We have our friends from Universitas Paramadina. Hi, everyone. Say hi to the camera. And also over here, we have our friends from UPH. Hi, everybody. How's everyone doing today? Great, awesome. I hope you are feeling awesome today because we're going to have a very special discussion today. And I also would like to shout out to our audience members joining us online from the U.S. Embassy, Bandar Seri Begawan. Hi, everyone. And also, we have our audience members joining us online from the U.S. Embassy in Bangkok. And also, all our friends across ASEAN region. Right now, we bring you a big conversation with a big impact, ASEAN's role in the U.S. Indo-Pacific Strategy. This is not just another talk. We're going to reflect on the future of the U.S. ASEAN relations and the ways in which Southeast Asia contributes to peace, prosperity, and cooperation across regions. And we are honored to be joined by two distinguished individuals who will lead the dialogue. First, allow me to introduce our distinguished speaker, Mr. James Carouso, Senior Advisor and Chairman of the Advisory Council to Australia Chair at the Center of Strategic and International Studies, as well as the former U.S. ASEAN Chargé the Affairs. Can we give a warm of welcome to Mr. James? And we are equally honored to have our moderator for this session, bringing sharp insights and energy to today's discussion. We have Ms. Eveline Tseng, Deputy Public Affairs Officer. Can we give another big round of applause for Ms. Eveline? So I'd like to also inform you today's dialogue will be followed and an opportunity for audience participation. We encourage you to take your part and share your perspectives and questions. This is your space, this is your change to make a change. So without any further ado, let's dive into today's big question. How does Southeast Asia fit into the U.S. Indo-Pacific strategy, and what role does ASEAN play in the regional cooperation? Please join me in welcoming Eveline Tseng and James Carouso to the stage.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for having us here today. We're really excited to have a really interesting, thoughtful, and in-depth discussion with you guys about the importance of the Indo-Pacific to the United States, but also to the region. As was just stated, my name is Eveline Tseng, and I am the Deputy Public Affairs Officer here at the U.S. Mission to ASEAN. And I know some of you may already know Jim Carouso, because he is actually a very well-known podcaster in the United States, which I will tell you more about in just a second. But in the meantime, if I can tell you just a little bit more about Jim. Jim Carouso has spent more than 25 years at the heart of U.S. diplomacy in the Indo-Pacific. He's advised senior military leaders, represented the United States in Australia and ASEAN, and helped negotiate trade agreements that shape how countries do business today. While leading U.S. relations with Southeast Asia, he launched U.S. ASEAN Connect, a major initiative that was announced to deepen economic ties across the region. Jim's career has taken him from South Africa to Indonesia to Thailand, giving him a front row seat to how global economics and politics affect everyday life. His work has earned him the State Department's Distinguished Honor Award, and today he continues to share his expertise as a senior advisor. And like I said, if you are interested in Jim's podcast, I do invite you to look up Why Should We Care About the Indo-Pacific? where Jim and his co-host explains why this region matters for all of our futures. Thank you again, Jim, for joining us today.
Great.
Before we get started, I wanted to give you guys some house rules, ground rules at the very beginning, because we have some exciting gifts that we brought from our mission that we hope some of you will be able to win. So here's the rules. One of these gifts will be for whoever asks the most interesting or insightful or fun question this afternoon. We have a lovely Fidia, if you want to raise your hand. Hello. She will be writing down your questions, and then she will consult with others, and then they will vote on who has the best question. And then you can pick from one of our lovely gifts down there at the box. And then at the end of the session, for those who have paid close attention to what Jim has said, Jim himself will ask about 5 questions. And whoever answers the question in a way that Jim likes will get to choose a gift. Does everybody understand the rules? Yeah? Is everyone excited? Do people want to bring home an awesome U.S. ASEAN logo gift? Who doesn't love free things, right? All right. Well, before I get started with my questions, Jim, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Terima kasih. Selamat siang semua. Apa kabar? Baik? Baik. Saya bekerja di Kedutaan Amerika di sini. Tahun 10 tahun lalu. Jadi saya lupa bicara bahasa Indonesia. Jadi I have to speak English. Maaf. But it's better for your ears if I don't speak any more Bahasa. Look, as Eveline so kindly introduced me, I've been coming to this region and working on this region since 1999. Why is that? As a U.S. diplomat, basically the whole world was an option for me. But I wanted to focus on ASEAN countries and Indonesia specifically because I understood back when I was a banker in New York in the 90s that this is the region with the most potential, with the most possibility to make the world a better place for its own citizens and for the citizens of the world. And ASEAN is an example of how countries, by working together, can accomplish more than by working by themselves. And I think ASEAN is a great example of what can be done to reduce barriers to trade and investment, to increase opportunities for all ASEAN citizens to work across all of ASEAN, for small countries and big countries to work together to amplify and extend their influence across the world. So I was very excited in 2011 to come to Indonesia to be the Kepala de Seksi Ekonomi, where I worked with your ministers to find new investment, to help develop the country more. And I'm still trying to do that by doing things like, as Eveline said, my podcast, to have Americans more understanding of how important ASEAN and Indonesian are, not just for the people in the region, but for the world and for Americans as a whole. So we're going to begin. I hope you have good questions. This should be a discussion, diskusi, and I no longer work for the American government. Saya orang bebas. So what I say is not U.S. government views. They are my own views. So don't say, Pak Jim said this and the U.S. government believes that. Not necessarily at all. Blame Eveline if I get it wrong. Okay, Jadi, let's begin.
All right. All right, Jim. You represented the U.S. in ASEAN and also worked on strengthening ties across the Indo-Pacific. So for my first question, for the students in this audience, I think we just want to know the following. Why does ASEAN matter?
Okay. It's a great question, and I get asked that a lot, not just in America, but here, because ASEAN is a very difficult animal to understand. They have so many meetings, and you say, what is all the talk? They talk and talk, what actually happens? But it's one of those things that you say, it could be better, but what it does now is important. Think back to when ASEAN was begun in 1967. Countries were still having arguments about boundaries. It wasn't long since Malaysia and Singapore separated. It wasn't long when Cambodia and Thailand were having disputes along the border, when Indonesia was having disputes with Singapore about the border. ASEAN provided a way for all the ASEAN countries to come together and discuss their differences. And as a result, by and large, since 1967, peace has been kept among ASEAN countries. Think how important that is. And besides that, think how the economies of the countries in ASEAN have grown. Now, it's not just because of ASEAN, but it has helped countries to focus their attention more on working together to build up their economies jointly and to have a common view at places like the World Trade Organization. It helps amplify what any one country to do 10 times by having 10 votes at the United Nations or World Trade Organization. Now, could it be better? Tentu saja. Everything can be better. And maybe it talks too much and does too little. But I really do believe that ASEAN would have to be invented if it didn't already exist. For Americans, when they say, what does ASEAN do? I try and say, ASEAN gives a voice for America to 880 million people. One of the fastest growing group economies in the world, more than 5% growth in GDP last year. And it's a way to influence people to say to a whole group of countries, this is what we're trying to do, and influence those countries this way. I can't express enough how much more ASEAN could be, but don't give up. ASEAN could be even more, and hopefully your generation will help it achieve its potential.
That's fantastic. And you're not kidding about the number of meetings that ASEAN, the secretariat here, does anyone know how many meetings they hold that the ASEAN secretariat here holds per year? It's over 1,300. 1,300 meetings in a calendar year. Can you imagine? I have like 10 per week and I'm about to lose my mind, So that's wonderful. Can you speak a little bit more specifically about, is there a moment when you were engaging with ASEAN, either the country or the secretariat, that you felt really presented the potential of this multilateralism in the region? Like an example of how they were able to reach consensus on something really important to the people.
When I was here as the head of the ASEAN mission in 2019, we then had the ASEAN Summit meeting, which includes the leaders of all the ASEAN countries, along with senior officials from the United States and China and Australia and New Zealand, to discuss issues of common concern. And what I saw then is when ASEAN works together for a goal, in this case I think it was a trade issue, when it works together for a goal, ASEAN can stand up to the biggest countries in the world, whether it's 1.4 billion people in China or the biggest economy in the world in the United States, and act as a voice. Don't forget, all these countries come together, sending senior leaders just to meet with ASEAN, because ASEAN is seen as so important to our economies and to the region. And so to me, it really showed me, as I was with Secretary of State Pompeo at the time, that he flew all the way from Washington to Bangkok for 2 days just to have these meetings, to show how much this mattered. And senior officials for China there too. And the US and China compete to get the attention of ASEAN. Well, that's very powerful for ASEAN, right? To have the the big guys fighting over your attention and your interest. And it still can be the case. So that was really what, to me, I saw in front of my own eyes what ASEAN power looks like.
Wonderful. So speaking about potential, you spent your career as an economic officer. And with your background in banking, I would say that most people consider you an economic financial expert. So what do you see are some of the economic challenges in ASEAN? And how can young people in ASEAN countries, as you said, it's one of the fastest growing demographics of youth. So how can young professionals, like those that are in our audience, our young students who are hopeful about the future, how can they use their power, either collectively or individually, to make a difference?
Okay, so you're all university students, you're well educated, maybe some of you want to be entrepreneurs, right? You have a good idea that you want to create a product or a service. How are you going to do it? The biggest the biggest barrier to your potential are one, government procedures can be very difficult to overcome. How many pieces of paper do you need to start a business, to open a bank account, to hire people? To me, the easier it is to start a business, the easier it is for you to start trying. And even if you fail, that's okay, because as they say in Silicon Valley, if you haven't failed a few times, you haven't really tried. You only learn by trying, and you only succeed by trying, and government should be promoting that. And this isn't only Indonesia, this is across the region. So that's one. Two, you may have a great idea, but you don't have money, you don't have capital. There has to be more of a venture capital, a risk capital culture here to take a chance on a startup. Now, there are some amazing, what they call unicorns, right? Startups in Indonesia, whether it's Tokopedia or Grab, Gojek. These started from very little, and they grew up into major global corporations. But they're not enough. And too often what we see is the established big family firms take up a lot of the space and a lot of the capital, a lot of the money, with nothing left for the startups. So somehow we need to find a way to attract more initial capital in Indonesia, within ASEAN, willing to take more risk on people like you. If you have a good idea and a good business plan, make an investment. And if that starts, then I really believe that foreign capital, foreign venture capital will come in. Because if they see Indonesian money flowing someplace, then they'll say, Indonesians are willing to take a risk, then I am willing to take a risk too. But it all starts with entities here funding more startups. I encourage all of you, take a chance. If you have a great idea, get together with friends. There was when I was here last time, General Electric Aircraft had a contest for who could make the best part to attach an engine to a wing. And this was a global contest. And the winners, and all over the world, were some people from, I think it was Solo. And they invested some money in a 3D printer and made a model of this part, and they won. The sad part is I don't know whatever happened to them.
Right. Yeah. Well, maybe they took all their wealth and erased their identities, so people can't find them. But you raise a really good point. I think one of the things that make the United States very unique is Americans are oftentimes raised being told that failure is not something to be ashamed of, right? That even from very young, we really push critical thinking. It's okay if the answer is wrong, as long as you show that you were thinking about what the answer should be, and not just parroting or memorizing or repeating something that you heard from someone else. I do know that here in Southeast Asia, there's a lot of respect and desire for innovation and original thought. But I think like in all societies, sometimes it's the structural that gets in the way. It's not necessarily that the ideas aren't there, but where do they get the oxygen and the air to live and grow? But that is something that I think we can challenge those in the audience and those online to think deeply about their societies and how they can help create more oxygen in your own environments. And if nothing else, one thing that I think youth has a lot of is sweat equity, which is what we say when it's just elbow grease, like you just work harder than everybody else, you support each other, right? If nobody else is gonna support you, find your network, find your friends, find opportunities. All right, well, that being said, I wanna turn to talk about like political leadership. I think, you know, a lot of young developing, or just societies in general, there's a lot of talk about economic opportunities. But I want to talk a little bit about how can like the youth, the young professionals in Southeast Asia, like how can they help ASEAN countries strengthen its partnerships with other countries, including the United States? Do you see opportunities or that have been overlooked perhaps that can give young people the confidence to know that they can be leaders in their own community and not wait until a certain age or until a certain step in their company before they can become leaders?
We're living through a time of great rapid change. Now, this is always the case, but now it's especially the case that things are happening very, very fast. What does this look like? This looks like the United States, our country, is no longer going to be as interested in being very, very active in supporting democratization in countries. They say we're more interested in trade. We're seeing more and more countries turning inward in Europe as well. What does this mean for you? It means Indonesians are going to have to look more to themselves and to its partners in ASEAN for leadership, to take its place as a center of power in the region. And it's going to be up to your generation that has a fresh point of view to say, what does this look like? I would also argue that technology is making huge changes. AI is going to change the world. AI combined with quantum computing and machine learning, I'm too old to know what this is going to mean and how it's going to affect me. But all of you are going to, if you can find ways to harness this power, basically the power of all knowledge in a way that benefits you and your country, I don't know what that would bring. But it means that one of the powerful nodes of the US and Europe and Japan has been the ability to have really knowledgeable people at well-funded research institutions doing new things. Well, perhaps with AI and these powerful computing systems that everyone can access, you have the same access to information as everyone else. What will you do with it? How will you use it politically to affect change here and in the region? So, some people are afraid of AI and what's happening around the world. Being afraid doesn't accomplish anything. Finding opportunity in change, that's where success is. So.
No, that's true. And I guess like AI is just a new smartphone, right? I mean, you can choose to not get one. You can have an old clamshell Nokia if you want. Although apparently that's coming back in vogue. So all the cool people have a clamshell Nokia nowadays. But I guess a tool is to be used, and you can not use it and be left behind, or you can learn to be the best wielder of it, right? And let it empower you. So I think that's very key. So let's turn to kind of your experiences when negotiating free trade agreements. What lessons from those negotiating tables in terms of like talking to the other side when perhaps you both started very far apart on what you wanted in the beginning? Can you tell us a little bit about kind of the skills, the experience, the tactics that you use to kind of bridge those differences? And how can young people in this audience and online or ASEAN countries in general apply some of those skills to also more deeply integrate themselves economically?
That's a big question. Okay, let's start with negotiating strategy. All right, so Eveline and I both want this, right? What am I willing to give up to get it? Do I know what her interest is in this? Why does she want it? You have to understand what the other party has as their key goals and their key red lines, things they will never give up. And then once you understand these things, also you have to understand your own goals. How important is this to me? Am I willing to just take this and not the whole thing? Do I have political support, whether it's from my company or from my government, to achieve my goals? Because if I come back with a deal, the government says no, well, that doesn't do me any good. So I have to understand my adversary and my own abilities and go in. I also have to understand that every time I say no to a proposal from the other side, they are going to be more likely to say no to something from me, because it's fair, right? If you say no, I say no. So negotiating strategy is a very key element of life. Anytime you are in, say, going in for a job interview, and they offer you a job and you're negotiating a salary, you have to understand what they're offering, why they want you, and what your powers are, and what your bottom line is for what you're willing to accept. So when we negotiated a free trade agreement unsuccessfully with Thailand, what we didn't understand was the political environment which made it impossible to get to yes. Because what we thought when they said, we'll have to study this, was actually no way, because very powerful figures wanted things the way they were. So in many ASEAN countries, you have to understand the political and economic culture and powers to see where you may be limited, and either you work around that or you find ways to change the culture. And changing a culture is hard and takes time. But as I said before, because things are moving so fast in global economics and politics and technology, I would say the coming decade is going to be a time of great opportunity for change. And hopefully you can seize it.
Yeah, I think those are like really good negotiating skills to develop. And like Jim said, this is something we negotiate every day, right? We negotiate with our families, our professors, our friends. I'm sure everybody at the end of the day doesn't go to bed and think, well, I got everything I wanted today, right? Everyone said yes to all of my ideas and gave me everything that I wanted, and it's been a fantastic day. I mean, I feel like, oftentimes we all have to compromise, and those who are the most successful are the ones who can see the other side, and like you said, give them what they're looking for in exchange for them giving you what you're looking for. If you don't mind, let me just say that I learned that quite young in one of my first jobs, because I wanted to attend a conference that at the time my manager didn't think I was quite ready for, and I was able to successfully convince this manager, who was much older and much more experienced and was looking for a more experienced officer to go to the conference instead. And I sang him this whole song sheet about, but youthful leadership and diplomacy is so critical to the department, and I could be one of those people. You just don't see it yet, but I can be. And I don't know what I said in that room, but at the end of it, he was like, okay, fine, maybe I just wore him down. But sometimes that's a negotiating tactic too. You just keep talking until they say yes. But it is very true where, if you take the first no, then that's it, right? And sometimes you really have to show that you're thinking about it from their perspective, and then you just don't give up, But I will say that even though I got that conference, I knew that was that one thing I'm getting that year, right? I was like, I spent all my political capital on that one event, but it was something I really, really wanted, right? And I knew that I'm going to have to give it a rest for a while afterwards, Right.
That's an important thing in negotiating, again, is if someone gives something up to you, they're going to expect you to give up something back if the power structure between the both of you is pretty much equal. One other thing that I meant to mention, government is all about negotiating, right? You have the different political parties, and they're trying to legislate in the DPR. It's about negotiation. What are you, Mr. Parliamentarian A and Mr. Parliamentarian B, how are we going to reach a new law or new regulation when we disagree on what should be done? And it's a negotiation, and as Eveline said, compromise is critical, because you don't have compromise, you have nothing. Nothing gets done. So it is a critical part of your skill set, is learning to negotiate well and really understand how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I think the Secretariat and also the ASEAN member states always try to achieve is, I guess, what we call ASEAN centrality. the ability of the member states, but also the organization to play a unifying and central role in determining self-determination for the region, in a way. So, as you said, the world is just turning faster. Things are changing rapidly. There are powers at play that perhaps wasn't in play even 5 years ago. So how can ASEAN maintain this centrality, maintain its central role in this region?
It's a big question because, again, so much is changing in the world. And if ASEAN doesn't hang together better, centrality and the idea of ASEAN as a player can be eroded. And I think to some degree it's happened. How? Let me give you two examples. One involving my country, the United States. When President Trump started raising tariffs in all the countries, rather than ASEAN coming together as a group and negotiating as a group on lowering the tariffs, each individual country sent its own team to negotiate. Now, that was an option. I would argue that if ASEAN went in as a single unit, it might have done better because it has more power. Again, 880 million people, 5% GDP growth, I think would have done better. Second, you all are familiar with China's claims in the South China Sea, and those claims overlap with the claims of Indonesia in Natuna and the Philippines in the West Philippine Sea and Vietnam. So is ASEAN doing a good job of having a single negotiating stance as ASEAN, representing all of ASEAN, in negotiating with China on, okay, where is the border between Chinese claims and the claims of each of our individual members? Now, the problem in both these situations is ASEAN is an organization based on consensus, meaning everyone has to agree. Now, if you ever go into a restaurant, getting 10 people to agree on anything, even what to order at a restaurant, is difficult. Getting 10 countries to agree on everything, very difficult. So my question for ASEAN is, in certain cases, maybe you need a majority opinion and not everyone agreeing, especially when it's in a situation like South China Sea. What is Laos' interest in South China Sea? They have no land, sea border. So maybe Laos shouldn't have such a same vote as Indonesia and the Philippines in that situation.
Bold. I hope we don't have any Lao audience members
I'm just using
online
example.
right now, but I applaud the innovation and ingenuity in that answer.
Just trying to be practical to make sure ASEAN is effective going forward. Because if one country can block ASEAN centrality, at some point countries are going to say, the big countries say, you know, rather than dealing with ASEAN and the power of 10 countries together, I'm going to pick them off one by one because each is weaker individually. There is, in ancient Roman history, they said, divide and conquer. You make your enemies weaker by dividing them and so they can't work together. And I fear that without ASEAN centrality, that approach will be more common.
And then there's the other very common saying, which is united we stand, and divided we fall. And I think we can equate that to experiences in our own lives. Can you imagine a group of 10 friends trying to decide on a movie or a restaurant? How long does that take? 2 hours sometimes, right? And then if we can't come to a consensus, what happens? Perhaps like 3 people go see this movie, 4 people go see another movie, or perhaps no one goes anywhere, right? Because it's already 11 o'clock at night and people need to go home. And I think you're absolutely right in that, you know, given the size differences within the 10 ASEAN states, the population differences, the economic development disparities, that sometimes there needs to be a little bit more compromise so they can at least reach an answer. Otherwise, what happens? People walk away from the table entirely. So that's definitely something to think about, and I hope those in the audience take that in. All right, well, we are kind of getting to the end of our part of the fireside chat, and we're going to soon open it up to the audience. So I'm going to ask one more question, which is, to kind of some career advice for young professionals. Now, you've had a distinguished career in finance, but also in diplomacy, and now in consulting and advising. So what advice would you give to students here today who want to follow a similar path in either finance or diplomacy or perhaps in advisory roles, especially in international relations or economic diplomacy? What kind of advice do you have for them so they can chart their own path?
Okay, well, the first piece of advice I would give is if you do something you really like, it doesn't feel like work. If you do something you don't like so much, even if you get paid a lot of money, you're not going to enjoy it and you're not going to enjoy your life as much. And I'll give you my own personal history. I went into banking after business school because I thought, well, that's where the money is. And I did it for years, but I never liked it. My money was the same as the other bank's money, and what was I really contributing to the world in my mind? So I left banking and a very good income and joined the American Diplomatic Service for a much, 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 much lower salary. But it didn't matter because I really enjoyed it. And I spent 25 years doing it after spending 12 years as a banker. My life was much more full, feeling that I was doing something positive for myself and for the people around me. So find what you like. And if you don't like it, you can try it. And if you don't like it, don't be afraid of change. Don't feel locked in. You're here today as university students because you have skills that you're already improving. Everything you do in your life is experience you can use someplace else. My experience as a banker helped a lot my experience as a diplomat, including in negotiation. So don't feel locked in. Find what you like. Don't be disappointed if you try it and don't like it. Now give it a chance. I'm not saying after 2 weeks you say, "Chukup." Give it a fair shot. And take advantage of whatever you can learn from the experience to help inform your own mind better what it is you really want to do. And then when you find it, go for it. Don't let obstacles stand in your way if you can possibly help it. Identify what you want, talk to people in the business or in the government, whoever can help you, and you'll have a much more fun life and experience and help the world more.
I couldn't agree more. And as they say, you can't take your money with you. So what's the point of amassing $1 billion and at the end of it, perhaps there's nobody by your bedside? So I think we all have to decide what is important to us and then do our best to achieve those things while being kind and considerate and hopefully contributing something to society. So thank you very much, Jim, for your insightful words. Before we get into Q&A, can we please give Mr. James Carouso a round of applause? All right. Now the moment I think Jim and I are the most excited about, which is about getting into the Q&A. Now, do we remember the rules of this Q&A? Okay. For those who may not, I will reiterate them one more time. We will be tracking the questions that are being asked. At the end of it, we have about 45 minutes, so we're going to try to get to everybody's questions. We will vote on the best question. And if I want to take a quick look at all of the beautiful swag that we brought today, the first gift will be given to the person who asks the best question, and they can pick which one they like. For those who are in the back and perhaps can't get a good view, we have a very lovely Waisili water bottle, we have a small notebook, we have a baseball cap, we have a couple of T-shirts to choose from, and I believe that's it. I think that's 6. And then we're going to turn the tables on you, where Jim is going to test to see how well you've all been listening to him. All right, so can we, I know we have a mic runner, or a couple of mic runners in the audience, so can we get our first question? I can't. Yeah, who did you see first? Can you describe the person? Yeah, okay. The young gentleman with the fine blazer and the many pins.
Good evening. My name is Sarajia Valsavas. I'm from University of
Can
Pelita.
you speak up a little bit?
Ah.
More into the mic.
My name is Sarajia Valsavas. I'm from University of Pelita Harapan. And my question is, we already know about the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, or sometimes referred as the New Silk Road. I like this alongside with the claim of the South China Sea. Is it considered as the part of their strategy to enlarge their part of powerhouse? And how will the US react? Especially, will US create their own road to create a much larger economic power base? Thank you.
Thank you. This is a perfect question for an economist.
I was about to say.
All right, we didn't ask him to ask that question. This was all by himself. All right, so the Belt and Road Initiative started quite a long time ago with the goal of better exporting excess capacity that China had built up in building infrastructure. You go to China, and it's very impressive, the new roads and dams and power plants that they have built. But because of the system there, it's been subsidized heavily to make sure for full employment, for paying back bank loans. So the only way it can keep going is to export the excess capacity. Now that's also turned into a foreign policy goal to help influence, get more influence in foreign countries. So for instance, the express train to Bandung that was built by China, I haven't seen it, but I'm told it's very impressive. This was Chinese technology, Chinese labor, Chinese capital, building an Indonesian asset. So the question for you as Indonesian citizens is, what are the responsibilities of the Indonesian state to pay for the Bandung Express Railroad? Is it making money? Does it have to pay back the money to China? If it doesn't pay back the money to China, what are the responsibilities of Indonesia to China? To me, I don't care if the infrastructure, where it comes from, as long as it's built well, is sustainable, and is needed. So a couple of stories there. In Myanmar, China proposed building a new port and free trade area around the capital, Yangon. And the proposal was huge. It was going to be something like $35 billion. There was no way that Myanmar could ever pay back that loan. So what was the point of the loan of having something so big? So the US government came in and did its own study saying, well, this is very useful, but we suggest you reduce it to $12 billion project, which is sustainable, which Myanmar could help pay back the loan. So that is the way countries have to take responsibility for using Belt and Road for their own benefit. If China wants to build something and use their own money, okay, but first say, what labor is going to be used? Is it Indonesian labor or Chinese labor? Because if you don't get jobs out of it, is it really useful? Is there technology transfer? So that when the express trains are running here, do Indonesians now learn how to build their own express trains? Or are you still going to have to import them from China? And again, what is the structure of the loan? Is it sustainable for the taxpayers of Indonesia? The US is not going to be financing infrastructure as a government. The US has the deepest, largest pools of capital in the world, but this private sector would have to be attracted to the investment. So if someone did a feasibility study of the Jakarta-Bandung Express Road and presented it to a US bank, and the US bank said, yes, I can finance it because I understand how it's going to make money and pay me back, that's fine. But if it's not done on commercial terms, the US isn't going to be involved anymore. I hope that answers your question.
All right, now we're going to switch to this side of the room. Who has a question? Oh, I have to admit, I saw the guy in the front first. I was going to say the gentleman in the blue jacket, but that doesn't really narrow it down at all, does it?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Afif, and I am a university student in Paramadina, Cipayung. and I have a question. My question is quite direct. When it comes to the complex security and political dynamics in the Indo-Pacific strategy, does ASEAN countries ultimately want the United States to be a trusted partner in the region, meaning someone who cooperates and respects ASEAN's leadership, or the police of the region, meaning a sole dominant power responsible for security and order? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very good question.
Showing your hand a little bit over there on the voting.
But that was a good question, too. So let's discuss what ASEAN wants. ASEAN wants to be independent and sovereign to decide for itself the big issues for the region. That's what centrality is. Now, the problem for ASEAN has been how do you enforce the rules to make sure you maintain that sovereignty, right? How do you keep other countries out of your region? And historically, it's been having the US power to offset Chinese power and have that balance. So I would argue the US policeman was more in theory, largely, or potential than fact. I would also argue that the US has failed, or ASEAN has failed, as we see the Chinese structures in the South China Sea built up. So has ASEAN centrality failed? Has the United States failed? Has China succeeded? And to what goal? How does ASEAN do better? How do they use the US better to push back against infringements? Does ASEAN need its own structured military force as a unit to be independent truly? I don't know. That's a big ask, but maybe that's what's necessary if the US is pulling back and China is pushing forward. It's a very difficult question, but I would say US policy right now is very clear. A free and independent region where countries make their own sovereign decisions. But the US is not going to do as much as it might to enforce that sovereignty. If that makes sense.
That being said, I think the US strategic ambiguity in the region is still very much at play. But I see a point in, at the end of the day, ASEAN, and this is what ASEAN says it wants to be able to self-determine its role in the region and chart its own future. So, and we as the United States, we only get one vote. ASEAN gets a vote, right? And the other players in the region gets a vote. This goes into what Jim was saying about negotiations. I think also ASEAN needs to ask itself really what it wants and what it wants from its partners, because we are ready. We want to stand with ASEAN, but the messaging also needs to be clear. And I hope I'm not saying this out of pocket too much, but I will say like sometimes the messaging from ASEAN itself is not entirely clear from my standpoint. And that makes it very hard. So for example, like if you have a friend you're trying to help, but that friend doesn't know what he or she even wants, right? And you're like, water, juice, a blanket, like what are you looking for? And they don't know. So it's a two-way street trying to help. You can't just help a person one way. That's not how it works. All right, we're gonna switch back to the side. Oh, okay, I think the gentleman, lady in the back. Yeah, the one all the way in the back.
Hello? All right. Okay, here's my question for you, James. Is that how? Oh yes, of course. My name is Ben. I'm a freelancer. I work a little bit with AWS and many cloud, IT, and many other infrastructure. So my question is, for all of us, if any one of us is to be an entrepreneur or being a diplomat in the future, how can we bring ASEAN role model to many other parts of the world? Like let's say if some of us get posted to be like a Indonesian diplomat in a EU country or any other parts of the world. So I'm sure it is good. But as an Indonesian diplomat, you're gonna be like representing ASEAN somehow. How can we bring ASEAN's economically infrastructure, centrality, transparency, AI, and defense, and of course, like intellectual property regulation? Yes.
All right. Thank you, Ben. All right. First, ASEAN, as Eveline said, has to decide what it wants. It has to be very clear on all those issues. Here is our common view of all 10 ASEAN countries for these issues. Sometimes ASEAN has clear views, sometimes it doesn't. Very often, ASEAN ambassadors in foreign countries will not speak with one voice. They'll have different views that they speak, even if ASEAN has agreed on a policy. Divide and conquer. When I was heading up our U.S. Embassy in Australia, we would meet every so often with the ASEAN ambassadors. So they weren't representing ASEAN, but it was the 10 ambassadors from ASEAN meeting with me to talk about issues in the region. And that's what has to happen more often. It happens in Washington as well. But it's very hard sometimes to get ASEAN to state clearly what the goal is. They say ASEAN centrality. Okay, if you want to be central, you have to tell us central to what and make a decision, because we're not standing still. We want things like digital trade agreements. If ASEAN could have a digital trade agreement internally, that would make it much easier for ASEAN as a whole to make agreements with other countries outside on how digital trade is conducted with all of you, as an example. But it's been several years now, and ASEAN still has no digital trade agreement. That's one example. So the stronger ASEAN is as a unit making decisions, the stronger it can be everywhere else in the world.
If I can add to that just a little bit. I mean, I will say, I think now, more than ever, and we've said this multiple times, the world's moving faster and faster. But I think government, diplomacy, negotiation, those things are just never going to be as fast as the internet or AI, you know, because consensus does take time, you know, and you can have it fast or you can have it good, but you rarely have it fast and good, right? And so to give ASEAN credit and even single governments and other multilateral entities like the EU, it is very hard to drive consensus, right? And we're very grateful that there is a secretariat who does over 1,300 meetings a year, trying to have those conversations and bring it all together. But I think Jim's central point still stands. Within ASEAN, there needs to be respect and trust and conversations happening across all of the countries. Obviously, it can't be just the big ones driving the little ones, but it also can't be the smaller ones saying no to everything because they don't feel like they're being heard. So it's a fine balance, and trying to strike the right balance does oftentimes take more time than I think what we're now used to. We want answers fast and in less than 15 seconds, right? We want it as fast as our smartphones can give it to us. And honestly, that's just not really how the real world works sometimes. All right, so back over on this side, do we have somebody with a question? All right, I think I feel this time, I feel pretty confident. Can we, to the young lady with the glasses.
Hi, I'm Kai. I'm from Paramadina, Cipayung. So my question is, you mentioned the impact of AI before. So while digital innovation and AI-driven platforms bring opportunities to grow in Southeast Asia, they also intensify risks, particularly for vulnerable immigrant workers who are increasingly exploited in cybercrime hubs across the region. In this context, what role should the United States play beyond economic engagement to ensure that its Indo-Pacific strategies promotes not only technological advancements, but also safeguards human dignity, labor rights, and justice within ASEAN? That's for me. Thank you.
Now that's a great point.
I'm not gonna lie, that's a pretty good competitor question.
Yeah. Look, we were discussing just yesterday about the importance of dealing with cybercrime within ASEAN. Why? First of all, citizens around the world are losing billions of dollars to scams, right? It's incredible. Many of the scam centers, where they're using technology like spoofing voices and spoofing images, are located in places like Cambodia and Myanmar, some in the Philippines as well. So Southeast Asia is a center of the scam industry. Eveline mentioned my podcast. We had on a journalist who investigated these centers for over a year. And it's terrifying because they basically kidnap people and lock them up, forcing them to do phone calls all day, all night. It's like prisoners. So not only is it stealing money, it's terrorizing citizens of ASEAN. It's awful. So what can we do? Well, this is actually for governments to work more closely together to press the governments of Philippines and Cambodia and Myanmar, whatever government's left in Myanmar, to close these centers down, to make sure that they can't do these things. So that's one aspect. The other aspect, of course, is cybercrime doing hacking. And it's a huge problem. Again, billions is stolen from banks and from people's wallets, cyber wallets, from hacking. All our governments have organizations that try to fight back. But as you mentioned, especially with the new technologies, it's become harder and harder. And I am not a technologist. I don't know the answer. But if you can come up with answers for how to deal with this, we're all ears.
Well, if I can preview something that we are working on, but don't hold me to it because no promises. But how many of you have heard of YSEALI, the Young Southeast Leaders Initiative? Yes, I see hands. Okay, great. So YSEALI has been going on for 12 years, and we do a lot of regional workshops. And one of the priorities that we have this coming year is combating online scam centers. So please, I promoted your podcast. I'm going to promote my own, not podcast, but at least our own social media platforms. Please do follow our U.S. ASEAN and our YSEALI Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn pages, because when we do announce this workshop, we'll be looking for new participants. So if anyone is interested in joining this initiative, finding ways and new solutions to combat online scams, please do submit an application. Likely, it's coming out some point soon. We hope to have this workshop in early spring, but just stay tuned. If you see the application open, please do submit and express your interest. But yeah, I mean, everything that you said was 1,000%. It's awful, and I think people have more than waken up to this problem. But like you said, it's a lot of it is a tech problem, and it was going to require tech solutions. But I think it's also going to require communities coming together, and identify when you believe that your loved ones are being targeted. All right, moving on to this side. Yeah, who did you see?
All right. Good afternoon, sir and ma'am. My name is Valerie from Pelita Harapan University. I would like to ask, you mentioned before that Indonesia should focus more on itself due to the fact that the US is going to no longer be very interested. If Indonesia focuses more on itself, as you mentioned, what would be the most strategic areas of self-investment for the next 20-ish years or so? Thank you.
Okay. Well, first of all, I don't mean to imply that Indonesia has not focused on itself before. And U.S. had a very big assistance mission here for many years, but as a percentage of overall government spending, it was just a fraction. Look, I can't tell you how Indonesian taxpayers' money should go, but I do feel that, as I said before, less government intervention maybe is a good thing. More freedom for entrepreneurs is a good thing. Less, as you say, red tape. And more investment in small, medium-sized businesses to give them the support to grow to become bigger businesses. It's, there's so many needs, of course. The President Prabowo has identified free school lunches, so there's more good nutrition and more low-cost housing for people. And these are all very important things. But the best thing, in my mind, is if you can get the economy to grow fast enough to give people enough good-paying jobs so that they can pay for these things themselves would be the best. But this is why you have a government to make these decisions. Thank God it's not my job.
All right. And I was just reminded, we actually have a few questions coming in from our online audience. Thank you very much. This one is coming from Deandra. She didn't say from which country she is writing in from, but Deandra asks, hello, sir. What do you think are the most urgent issues the United States and ASEAN countries should be working on together right now?
Well, there's so many. And I'll take a difference from our current administration and say climate change obviously is very important. I have seen with my own eyes the effects on coastal communities from rising sea levels, pollution in Indonesia, especially from plastic bags in the waterways, killing the fish and sea animals. Very serious problem. It'd be good to work together with that. Fishing, so many people in ASEAN depend on fishing to get protein, but there's a lot of overfishing. Some of it's from China, but some of it's from places like Vietnam and Thailand. We need to find ways to conserve our fisheries, make them sustainable so people have the food resources they need, especially poor people. It's a fine question, she's probably right. How do you prioritize when there's so much that needs to be done? But if you can do it people and environment first, maybe that's the way to go.
I will also add that, we know there's over 100 people in this audience right now. And you don't all have to be aiming for the same solutions. In fact, the world is far too complicated for all of us to be focused on just one problem, right? It's a multilateral, multipole universe, world, globe that we are in right now. And it's okay if one person prioritizes climate, another one prioritizes sustainability, another one prioritizes community engagement or empowerment of a certain group of people. I think if you can forgive me for putting words in Jim's mouth, I think one of the things he said about professional development and how can you chart your own path is you have to find what you're passionate about, right? And as long as it's something that you were considering your community in as part of that thought process and not just yourself or how much money you can make or how much prestige and attention you can get, but if you think deeply about your own lives, your family, and your community and what all of that needs, no, it doesn't matter what you choose, right? You're gonna make a difference, right? And it doesn't, and yes, would we all want to make world life-changing differences everywhere? But if you really think about it, like every moment of every life is made up of these small moments, right? And every life is meaningful. So no matter what you do it with intention, do it with thought, and do it with love and care. And the rest will it will work itself out, and everyone can make a difference. All right, I think it's back on this side, yeah? All right, do we have a question from, I'm going to call it the blue side at this point. The blue side, do you have a question? Okay, yeah, I think the gentleman on the end, correct?
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Wijaya, and I'm a international relations student on Paramadina University. I want to ask about AUKUS, the trilateral security partnership between Australia, UK, and US. My question is, what is the impact of AUKUS for ASEAN? So, thank you, sir.
So it's funny you asked that question because when I was in Australia, we were discussing AUKUS, and I met with some ASEAN ambassadors who asked me the exact same question. So you already are acting like an ambassador. Very good. Look, and the question the ambassador says was, how does this affect ASEAN centrality? Because these submarines will be going through ASEAN water. And we want to make sure we have control over our destiny. To me, AUKUS would be better if there was a mechanism for having regular consultations with ASEAN on exactly this subject. But ASEAN has no defense committee. Who do they talk to? Do they talk with individual countries, 10 of them? That doesn't really work. So to me, the best thing ASEAN can do is form a committee to say, we want to be the central point for other countries to talk about defense and security issues. And that will help solve the problem. Now, the actual impact on ASEAN is actually very quietly, many countries are saying, we're glad you're doing this because we need you to demonstrate continued interest and support on the defense side in this region. Continued commitment to balance against China, whose power is growing so fast. So the clever ASEANs will say how we're going to balance AUKUS and those nuclear submarines against the new aircraft carriers and nuclear submarines of China so that we're safe because both sides are looking at each other and leave us alone. But ASEAN's got to find a better way to engage on these matters, is my bottom line.
And just because I didn't give our online audiences a fair shot at their questions, I'm going to do another one from an online participant, just to kind of like even up the scorecard a little bit, because we've given multiple chances to both sides. Is that okay, everyone? Can we do another online question? Awesome. Excellent. See, this is like the cooperation and the consensus, right, that we're all talking about. So this question is coming from Farhan. Thank you, Farhan. What role can students and young professionals in Indonesia play in building stronger U.S. ASEAN ties?
All right, so this is the question of the power of the individual. And the wonderful thing about the world in the age of the internet is everyone is within reach all over the world with one of these, right? And there's social media that can create groups in a flash. There are also things like Eveline mentioned YSEALI, Young Southeast Asia Leaders Initiative, which is a US government program designed to bring young leaders from all over ASEAN together to get to know each other, and as they move up in their careers, to foster greater cooperation because they're already friends. It's reaching out and forming a network. Facebook talks about the power of the network, the social network. Well, we're talking about your own social networks. So whatever interest group you have, you can find people in your own country, in your city, and throughout the region and the world that are interested in it, no matter what the subject is. So be proactive. Search out these groups. Get involved. Form a local chapter in your university or city of whatever this group is. And as it grows and becomes more important, suddenly politicians pay attention. They will go where the votes are. So if you show enough power on an issue, that's how you create influence, both in the country and in ASEAN.
Yeah, I think we can say, given the recent incidents that's happened inside Indonesia, the power of the people, and perhaps individually, there's not much you can do outside of your own sphere of influence, but multitudes matter. You know, you can amplify your voice by having more partners, building alliances yourself. And I will say, you know, again, as someone who can no longer be called a youth, and I don't presume to say whether or not you're a youth, Jim, but you know, you guys have the energy, right? You guys can stay up late. You guys can do a lot of things that I think the two of us just kind of, you know, think we can do, but probably can't do anymore. So we all have our advantages in stages of life. There are things you can do now, right, that you're not going to be able to do later in the decade or 2 decades from now, because other things will take priority, right? And there'll be other things you want. But if there's something you really want passionately right now, there is no better advice than start today. Start yesterday. Start a year ago, right? Don't wait for the perfect moment. There is no such thing, right? And you have to harness and utilize your own energy, you know, the time that you have that we have less of, right? And work it towards the things that you are really passionate about. All right, I kind of lost track. Are we back on the black side? Yeah. Okay. Yep, we have, yep.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kire. I am an international relations student at UPH. So I want to ask one question. So you've mentioned that certain countries have their own culture and values. And in terms of negotiations, will the ideologies of certain countries, maybe like Myanmar and ASEAN, became a barrier to this strategy? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. You know, the problem with Myanmar is less Myanmar culture than Myanmar government of military. They're fighting a terrible civil war. People are being killed. And ASEAN has tried to play a role in mediating peace. But, you know, ASEAN, as a central condition, has a policy of non-interference in other countries' internal affairs. And unfortunately, this civil war in Myanmar is an internal affair. And Myanmar has not welcomed ASEAN participation, despite occasionally saying they would, they really haven't. So, yes, within ASEAN you have countries like the Philippines, which is very different from Singapore, which is very different from Timor-Leste, whatever. But you're all ASEAN, and you're bound together by geography and history. And you can overcome culture, as we've seen, by the formation of ASEAN and those areas where we've made progress. So I'd say it's not a matter of culture. Everyone in ASEAN can work and has worked to overcome misunderstandings from culture. It's the problems of internal politics that sometimes gets involved that causes barriers, and sometimes from pressure from outside countries as well.
Can we move to the blue side? Okay. I think the gentleman, like smack in the middle.
Okay, hello everyone. I would like my question to be a little bit personal and intimate rather
I'm sorry, can you speak into the mic a little bit?
Okay, my name is Afik, okay? And I want my question to be a little bit personal and intimate, not to be very strong. I'd like to hear your perspective of my question, okay? If we are talking about centralizing countries like ASEAN, for example, you briefly mentioned about how, for example, Donald Trump trying to increase the tariffs of the many countries, others, and then I think the idea of ASEAN, Asia itself, in general, Asia, is a different culture than the Western place such as Europe or America. I don't think that the idea of making a deal together and then standing on one table and then discuss about one thing is really a very Asian thing to do. So that's my frank opinion. What do you think about it?
I think it's not just Asia that makes it difficult for countries to work together. If you look at the European Union, they're constantly fighting. They can't even come together really on a response to the war in Ukraine. It takes a lot of work and effort, and what's required is to see the benefit for all in putting aside some aspects of national interest for the greater good of overall national interest. And it's hard. And in the United States, think about this. At the end of the Cold War, when Russia fell, the United States had the largest military, the largest economy. It was rich. It could do anything it wanted, really. But we had signed treaties, free trade agreement treaties, treaties with the UN, and every treaty limits a country's sovereignty, the ability to do what it wants. It says, I'm giving up my right to do what I want in the interest of something greater. For ASEAN countries, they have to agree sometimes to have centrality, to have a bigger voice as a group, to say, I'm going to cooperate with my other 9 neighbors to achieve something better that maybe I can't achieve on my own. I agree with you. It's very hard, but I think it's worth the effort to achieve a better outcome. This is why ASEAN has a secretariat to keep discussing this. This is why ASEAN exists. So I urge you to be optimistic.
Actually, I'm going to go a little bit further than that. I think you're underestimating like the region and ASEAN ability to come together. I mean, the fact that they have ASEAN, the secretariat at all, it's the only multinational organization that's doing what it's doing in all of Asia, right? You guys did this, like Southeast Asia did it, right? I mean, nowhere else in this region. And it's astonishing, because you're saying, oh, culture, they can't come together, and they did, right? I mean, does that mean they're always going to be in agreement? No, but they have put in the mechanisms in place. Also, what is culture? It is made up of people. It is our beliefs, our traditions. So what does that mean? People can change culture. I mean, I think you're giving, America and the West a lot of credit. I mean, on one hand, perhaps we're coming across as super unified. But on the other hand, I think most Americans are like, no, individual rights. That's what we stand for. We're all about everyone gets to have a voice, and we don't always stand together. And it kind of works, and it works for us, right? But I'm saying that don't let these assumptions kind of limit the possibilities, right? You're a part of culture. We're all a part of this culture. If you don't like it, find ways to change people's minds, find ways to bring people together. And success breeds success. So if you can create a platform or an experience that lets people see the possibility of how much you can achieve by doing it together, you'll have an even greater opportunity next time to bring them and more people together to do to show and demonstrate how unity can really solve problems, right? But don't let culture be an excuse for inaction, right? Because you're going to be our culture in exactly like 20 years. You're going to be the tastemakers. Right now, I'm sorry, I'm going on the whole thing about this because I feel like very touched by this question. But when I was growing up, like anime was not a thing in the United States. I was like the only person in like my entire state, I think, that was watching Dragon Ball Z. And now, who are the tastemakers? Like my generation, and all of a sudden being geeky is cool, right? We have Comic-Con, right? We have like Marvel. Like, can you imagine 30 years ago, like a Hollywood director being like, I have this great idea. How about all these guys in tights, And then we'll make 10 movies. Right? He would have been laughed out of town, right? So culture changes all the time, right? And usually it's youth that defines what is culture, right? So again, don't limit yourself. Don't let it be an excuse for inaction. Just find your own way to push things forward, right? And things tend to coalesce and work out.
Just out of curiosity, how many people here like K-pop?
Guilty.
Not that many. Okay.
Oh, really? Oh, very serious,
okay.
This group.
All right.
I think they're just shy. They're just shy. Okay, we're down to less than 4 minutes. So unfortunately, I think we're going to have time for maybe one more question. I think, but that group had, they started first, correct? Okay, just to even things out, we're going to go with one final online question. Okay. And then that will give Fidia and her a chance to kind of figure out which one from the audience, right? Because unfortunately, thank you very much for our online audience and all your questions. I'm not really sure we found a way to email you one of these beautiful gifts. But thank you so much for contributing and coming today. We really appreciate you submitting your questions online. Thank you. Okay, so, oh my goodness, my whole thing. Okay, so this final question is coming from Zafran. Good afternoon. I want to ask how, oh my gosh, my thing is going crazy. Okay, I want to ask how important is digital innovation and technology cooperation is in the future of U.S. ASEAN relations?
All right, look, in your lives, you have your cell phone on all the time, right? You live in a digital world. It's only going to get more so. So relations between people and countries is becoming ever more digital because you have all the information at your fingertips. I don't know how that's going to change going forward. When I started the State Department in 1995, we barely had email.
Yeah.
So think about how the world has changed. So I can't answer the question because I can't imagine what comes next with the new technologies. But for the whole world, digital interchange is only going to become more important. But I want to emphasize it cannot take the place of people-to-people contact. Eveline and I will agree. Why do we have embassies overseas? You can do everything online or Zoom, right? Because they say the last meter between people are the 1 meter that counts the most. To look someone in the eye, touch their hand, see their body language, nothing can replace that to really understand what's in a person's thinking and heart. So that's why we're here.
Well, I can't do better than that answer. Thank you guys all very much. Please give yourselves a round of applause. All right, we only have a couple minutes left, and we do want to get a group photo with everyone at the end, if possible. So, Fidia, would you like to tell us your favorite question? Do you want to? Oh, okay. They're gonna bring her mic.
Okay, this is going to be a hard decision because everyone's question was very, very interesting. Like those in front, I was puzzled. Oh, I have to make the decision, but I will then. So, the best questions goes to Afif from Paramadina.
All right, do you want to come up and pick from our selection of which one you would like, or do you just want us to hand you something?
The one, sorry, the one who's.
What was the question?
The question was about the complex security of Indo-Pacific and how the U.S. is addressing it. He's the second one who asked.
The second question?
Yes.
All right, congratulations.
So would you like to choose? This one have the size, so if you want, this is an XL. I think this one's an L. This is the notebook.
Oh, okay.
This is the Humans of New York.
All right, and while he is choosing, Jim, do you want to ask a question to the audience, and we'll see which answer you like, or if you find the answer acceptable for a gift? Woo! Let's see how well people have been paying attention.
Okay, so the first question, why does ASEAN matter?
Question number 1. What did Jim say? Oh, come on. You're going to make us take all of these gifts home? Okay, yep.
Hello, my name is Ananda, and I'm from Paramadina University. What is ASEAN Matter? ASEAN gathered countries and help focus on developing. It helped amplify countries, hope it gets better. For American, ASEAN is a voice for American. It's a way to influence people and countries. And ASEAN could be more than just gathered countries. And for more, ASEAN meeting with America is more than 300 times.
Ooh, okay, very nice. Please come on down. I have another question for the audience, Jim.
Okay.
Oh, I can ask a question.
Yes.
Does anyone remember what Jim said? Oh, actually, this is a pretty easy one. And it cannot be the person who asked the question, or like knows I know this gentleman over here. You cannot, I don't know if you can win this one because it's a little unfair. But does anyone remember what AUKUS stands for? Oh, okay. More people know than I thought. Who came up first? Who did you see come? The gentleman at the end. Can we get him a mic?
So what is the stance of the, what's that? The AUKUS?
Yes, what does it stand for?
Australia, UK, and United States of America.
Woo, very good. Come on down. Yeah, that was pretty, I thought it was tougher than that. Yeah, come down. The one who answered the questions, just please come down and pick your gift. We'll keep going, but you know, he or she who gets to the gift first takes it.
All right. Keeping with the question of what an acronym means, what does ASEAN stand for?
Oh, that's a long one.
Test, 1, 2, 3. All right. Finally, I got this opportunity. All right. So what does ASEAN stand for? It is Association of Southeast Asian Nations.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, what was the last letter? Very nice. All right. Can I ask the next one? Will you be okay with that? All right. What did Jim say about if you are interested in pursuing a career in diplomacy or in economic, in finance or in consultancy? Like, what was some of the advice that he gave to the audience? I think that gentleman in the front.
Yeah, my name is Muhammad Haniwa Samola. So your question was the career advice, right?
I'm sorry, what?
Career advice?
Yes, what career advice did he give?
If you do something you really like, it won't feel like work. So, and what that means is look what you like and love it, and it will be a very... I'm sorry, I'm a bit nervous.
You got it.
I'm a bit nervous, I'm sorry.
Yeah, amazing. Good listener.
I'm sorry.
All right, how many more do we have? We have one more, two more? The monitor's kind of in the way.
Oh, three more.
Three more. Okay, let's do it. We're running out of time. Do you have another question?
I do. What got Eveline most excited?
Oh, what got Eveline most excited? Oh, yeah, I saw this lady, yep. What got me most excited?
Hello, my name is
Hi.
Farah. I'm from Paramadina. As Eveline loved the most is anime, especially especially Dragon Ball. I watched it when I was young as well.
I will take that answer. Very good.
Exactly right.
That's exactly right. So I was like watching it by myself. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Are you okay? Oh. All right. I think this is the second to last question, so we need fast hands and fast answers. What was Jim's first career? Yeah, okay. Who? Who did you see? Yep, over here? Okay. No, oh, the gentleman, no, sorry. The gentleman in the white? The white?
Hi, Mr. Jip. So I believe your first career was a banker.
Yeah,
Yes.
very good. Okay, final question, guys. Let's see how well you've really been listening.
All right, this is a tricky one. I said I have a podcast, right? Who remembers the name of it?
Oh, okay. I think.
I see.
Yeah, I think that. Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say, like, the gentleman in the light blue had his hands up a lot. No. Oh,
blue.
The light blue. Yeah, the gentleman in the light blue.
I think you are with Ray Powell. It's the Why We Care About Indo-Pacific.
Oh.
Amazing! Wow. All right, please come. All right, everyone. We had a fantastic time. We hope you did as well. Jim, would you like to say the closing final remarks?
Terima kasih banyak. Saya senang sekali kembali ke Jakarta, ke Indonesia. I hope I'll see you again soon. Thank you for being an enthusiastic audience, and wish you best luck, success.
All right, what a very fun and engaging discussion. Can we give a big, big round of applause for every one of you here joining us on site and also our online audience joining us from everywhere around the world. And thank you so much to Pak James Carouso for sharing your expertise along with your experiences. And also thank you to our wonderful moderator, Eveline Tseng, for your amazing work in navigating the discussion with such energy. And of course, thank you to all of you, both here at America and also online, for your energy and questions. Remember, these conversations matter because you are a part of shaping the future of regional cooperation. And stay tuned for our upcoming events and subscribe to be our member at www.atamerica.ru.id. You will receive our weekly notification of our upcoming events, and also you will get a chance to collect more exclusive merchandises. And follow us on our Facebook, Instagram, and X at AT America. And you can always rewatch our previous programs at YouTube channel at AT America. With that, thank you so much again, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Sasna, and we'll see you on the next At America event. Bye-bye, everybody.